Hey guys, welcome back to Reel It In, my podcast on all things fandom. This is episode 5, and today we're talking about The Mandalorian, chapter 14. With me, I have a new guest, Charles.
Hi, how is everyone doing?
How are you doing? How did you get into Star Wars?
I've kind of always liked it. I guess just since I was a kid, I remember I would want to watch the movies every single week, and my parents hated that because whenever we'd have family movie night, I'd be like, "Oh, let's watch Star Wars," and
they're like, again?
Yeah, exactly. It's like we watched it 2 weeks ago.
Nice. How are you liking the Mandalorian series as a whole?
I think it's decent, but a little overhyped. I enjoy it and everything, but I don't think it's the greatest thing in the world.
Mm-hmm. Are you one of those people who's obsessed with the child, or are you kind of over him?
Over it.
You're over it.
Yeah.
All right, so this episode you probably weren't sweating too much.
No, well, of course they're not going to kill him.
Yeah, no, of course. All right, so this episode starts off with a recap, and one of the scenes that I want to pull attention to is a scene from season 1, where it's at the end of the Tatooine episode, where we see Fennec, who is the Asian woman. She's, left dead on the sands of Tatooine. And then we see these, unknown boots approach her. And I think myself, as well as most of the audience, thought that these boots belonged to Moff Gideon, who was tracking Mando to get his asset back, which is the child. But as it turns out, we figured this out later in this episode, is that those feet belong to Boba Fett the whole time. And, sometimes, I feel like people think that for season 2, Boba Fett was just kind of written in just as a fan service. But I think this shows that, the creators of The Mandalorian had this planned the whole time. How did you feel about the reveal of Boba Fett? Because I was a bit worried.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be a bit fan servicey, kind of like with Ahsoka in the last episode, but I think they actually handled it fairly well. I think they handled Boba a little bit better than Ahsoka, but I think he is going to play a bigger role in the next 2 episodes, since there's 2 episodes left this season, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then I don't foresee him being a main character going forward. I think he's just going to be a somewhat big role in the next few episodes, and then I think he'll probably move out of the show, but that's just my feel.
Yeah, there's a lot of talk, especially with all these new characters or old characters coming to their live action debut, that all these characters might have their own spin-off show. Do you think Fett might have his own too?
I could definitely see that happening. I don't know if they do that. I don't know if they would use the actor. I think his name is Tamora Morrison.
Yep.
I don't know if they would use him just because he's a tad old, but I thought he did great in this, and I really enjoyed seeing him. I guess there was a lot of nostalgia from sort of the old movies, or I guess episode 2 and 3, but seeing the same actor come back to play Boba, I really enjoyed that, and I would like to see him play a clone or something, just even if it's a cameo. I think that would be really cool as well. But
yeah, because he was the original Jango Fett in the prequel movies, so he could do a lot of the clones. So later on we see Grogu, which for those of you who have not caught up on my podcasts, is the name of what we know as Baby Yoda, or the child. And this is not my own idea. I did see it somewhere else, but I wanted to bring attention to it. That Grogu may be so attached to that metal knob because it reminds him of, those training droids that all the younglings use to hone in their force powers.
Oh, huh.
We see Luke in A New Hope on the Millennium Falcon with Ben, and he's training with one of these to you can't see, you have to feel. So I thought that was an interesting one, because we find out that Grogu, he grew up in the Jedi Temple on Coruscant, and he was trained. I wonder if that's something that's familiar to him.
Yeah, I don't know if that's the exact reason why. I think it's sort of the simpler answer is just it was kind of the first toy he got from Mando, who I think he considers a father figure, I guess, since which is just kind of weird.
I find that interesting because I feel like with children, having facial expressions really helps with their attachment.
Mm-hmm.
And, Mando, he never takes off his helmet. So I am a little bit surprised just how quickly and like how fiercely Grogu got attached to him, because he never sees his face.
Yeah, that is really interesting. It's also kind of weird with his age because how old did they say he was originally?
Who, Grogu?
Yeah.
He is 50, I believe.
Okay, and obviously he's not human. He's the Yoda species. Mm-hmm. So they age differently. So it's just kind of weird trying to figure out like exactly where he is in his life cycle, I guess, for lack of a better word.
True,
and
yeah. His developmental process.
Yeah, and that's also interesting because I know in cases of, sad to bring this up, but with like child abuse, it often causes kids to sort of like revert back to younger stages in their life. Mm-hmm. And it seems like Grogu was, what you'd consider like abused because he seemed to be encased in, kind of like not really a prison, but kind of held
like a stronghold kind of
Yeah,
deal.
It seemed like, he isn't getting the right development. So I think even if technically his species or whatever ages differently, I think it still makes sense for him to be acting kind of like a toddler, even though, if you do the math, it might not line up. But
yeah, that's true. Yeah, so this planet is a relatively new planet, I think, for, the live action series and movies. We have heard about it in the expanded universe as well as comics. Have you heard about Tython before, or is this a new planet for you?
It was new for me. I actually hadn't heard of it. I don't know. Is it mentioned in like a video game or a book, what's it?
It's in some of the Darth Vader comics, I believe. I think the newer Darth Vader comics. Mm-hmm. We see someone called Dr. Aphra lead Darth Vader to this planet to divert him from the actual rebel base, which was on Hoth at the time. Basically, what we find out for those comics is that Tython is a very old planet, and it's supposed to be filled with Jedi wisdom. There's supposed to be something called the Martrium of Frozen Tears, which was built by a Jedi, as well as certain ice caps, and like the creatures and beasts on this planet is supposed to be they're supposed to be pretty like fearsome. And I'm a little disappointed in Tython because, like I said, this episode was 30 minutes long. You could have definitely added a little bit more, as long as it makes sense to the plot and everything, of course. But I would have liked to see a little bit of these aspects in live action because, it just kind of looks like another terrestrial planet, and you only see it for maybe like 15 minutes.
Yeah, and we didn't see any like new alien life on the planet, did we? I didn't remember seeing anything.
No, I don't think we do.
Crazy,
which is odd because each episode we do see some form of like Star Wars creature. Yeah,
it felt kind of, I don't know if disconnected is the right word, but it felt a little empty just because on a lot of the other planets we've seen and whatnot, we'll see either other alien creatures or like something else, and it was just a little disappointing that we didn't see anything new. It felt like it could have almost been set on like Earth.
Yeah. I'm sure they definitely got some of their shot ideas from certain places on Earth.
Well, yeah, I guess I meant like it felt a little empty is what I mean by it, in the sense that like it didn't look
Star Warsy.
Yeah, exactly. And I think even if they made like a little like rat or a bird or something, I think that would have gone some ways in sort of creating the atmosphere.
Yeah. Well, we did get some blue butterflies. We did see some of those.
Oh yeah.
But that was about it. So how do you feel about Fennec returning in season 2, now as part droid?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really interesting. She didn't play that big of a role in season 1, right? She was fairly minor.
Yeah, I think she's supposed to have some information from Mando, and then this other guy who was in the guild at the time was trying to catch her and kill her and get his token, I guess. So that's how she played in. I was kind of surprised because what this Mandalorian series does is they take all these characters, which you think you're only going to see once, and then at the very end of the season, they bring them all back together. Mm-hmm. Which I mentioned in the last episode, it is a little bit frustrating for me just because some of these characters are classified as, main characters, but you only see them in like 2-3 episodes of seasons.
Yeah, that's kind of, I think it goes back to how it's sort of the plot is very, like, episode to episode, each story is pretty self-contained, which I think there's pros and cons to that approach. But, and then it seems like really only in the last, like, maybe 1 or 2 episodes of each season is when sort of the plot goes forward. And then I think, it certainly makes sense to bring characters back. It's just, I personally would enjoy it a little bit more if there was more of a overarching feel to the whole season or show. But
So in past episodes, I had a theory about Moff Gideon hiring Boba Fett to capture Grogu, and I was wrong. I'm not afraid to admit that. Some people think that Fett might be tricking Mando in order to acquire Grogu with his offer to join him to get him back. But I don't think that makes a lot of sense, because if Moff Gideon already has Grogu, then I feel like Fett would no longer offer his help.
Yeah, and also, I mean, he killed like 30 stormtroopers. So.
Yeah, he bashed their skulls in.
Yeah, that was just a brutal scene.
That was an awesome scene. It showed Fett has still got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I do think it could take this episode or this series on new paths, which I will get to a little bit later. I think because this episode was so short, you have to have every single scene sort of make sense. And if you're a writer, a professional or even an amateur, you can kind of see the writing process of this episode, which is made easy because of how short it is. And you can really see that when Mando, he takes off his jetpack, when, him and Boba Fett are confronting each other, and I'll get back to that later, but that's like process of writing number 1. The next process of writing is a distraction, which is what I think the stormtroopers were.
Yeah, I mean, it does seem like the plan of Moff Gideon was essentially, okay, I'm going to get them all distracted with sending in the stormtroopers, and then we're going to send in the dark troopers to come in and take him.
Right.
And then it worked, of course. Spoilers, it worked. But one thing that actually really confused me about this episode is, so I understand why he took off his jetpack in the first place, because he needed to show that he wasn't trying to kill Boba. But why didn't he pick it back up? It seemed like it would be very useful in that scenario. And we didn't see it at all in the rest of the episode, which I thought was just a little weird.
Yeah, they never went and got back. Well, that's also part of the whole writing process, is in Mando leaving his jetpack, it makes his race to go get Grogu when, the Dark Troopers are descending longer than normal. So that means that the Dark Troopers actually have a chance to reach him first and take him. And I kind of agree with you. I feel like it might have been better to have Mando acquire his jetpack and actually make it to Grogu on time, and still have Grogu be taken. But it would have like a quick fight scene between, the Dark Troopers and Mando, where Mando actually is easily defeated by them, because I think that would show that the troopers, they're like a real threat. Like, us fans, we know from, past comics or games or that, like, these Dark Troopers are not to be taken lightly. I think to actually show them, beat Mando very easily in a fight, it would prove that, future challenges between the two of them would be tricky. And I think it would add a bit more, what's the word I'm looking for?
Tension, maybe?
Yeah, tension, and, and just show that this is not something that can just easily be defeated. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's something that I personally haven't, I don't hate it, but it's something that bothers me a little bit, is that it does feel like the Empire, the remnants of them, are pretty easily handled by, Mando and his friends, which, I don't know if they're going to continue to be like the main antagonists of the whole series, but it's the type of thing where they do need to introduce something in order to bring the tension up, because it's almost like whenever you see a stormtrooper on screen, you're like, oh, they're going to die in 30 seconds.
Yeah, right.
And it'd be nice if they had something else to kind of make you a little bit more invested, more excited, more worried.
Yeah. And like I said, I'm going to be talking about a lot about the writing process for this episode. In the reveal of Boba Fett and Fennec, you can see that they are easily able to hold their own against, their enemies. And not only that, but they're really good at it. Their fighting style is is unmatched pretty much. And so in the future, we know that Mando is going to assemble a task force based off of the characterization and, the fight scenes. We know that, they're going to be a good addition.
Mm-hmm.
And based off of the ending of this episode, which I'll get to later, they're all going to be this one big force to try and get Grogu back, I'm assuming.
It definitely, I think the ending very much almost explicitly said that's what they're doing with him getting...
Mayfield.
The thing is, didn't Mayfield betray him the last episode he was in? So I think...
Yeah, he did.
I think they're going to rescue him, and then he's going to betray them again.
You think he's going to betray them?
I think so. I think it would fit with sort of the story structure. Because I'd imagine the next episode is going to be mostly about sort of assembling the team, getting them all together, and then the episode after that is going to be the season finale. So they're going to need something to like raise the stakes. And I think with how much, because it seems like almost every other episode, Mando gets betrayed by someone who's claiming to help him. Mm-hmm. So it would really. Well, I don't know. Maybe they'll sort of subvert the expectations and not have that happen. But
yeah, it could be that Mando, he'd be like, "I'll get you out of here, but you need to help me."
Yeah.
So maybe that will be what will happen. This series is called The Mandalorian for a reason, as it's about Mando and how he was raised, and I think Mandalorians as a whole, and I think Mando and Boba Fett together is a really good symbol of the Mandalorians and can represent, sort of like the different clans working together. And because we've seen Bo-Katan in an earlier episode, so if she returns either at the end of season 2 or or in season 3, and if Boba Fett is still with us at that point, I feel like it would really add to the symbolism, because these are 3 different basically clans of the Mandalorian working together on something.
I think one thing we were talking about a little bit earlier is with the plot and sort of the overarching plot. I think, and how it feels like the sort of episode to episode, the plot doesn't advance that much. Mm-hmm. One thing I think I would really like, and I'm sure a lot of other people would like, is if the sort of overarching plot of the whole series becomes sort of trying to either like reunite Mandalore or all the Mandalorians coming together to do something. And I think that's where I would want to see it go, is just we learn more and more about all the Mandalorians, what they're doing, and from them as sort of a microcosm, we could also see what's going on with everything else, like the Empire, the Rebels, and how they have been handling things. And
right, because I think that might actually happen, because Bo-Katan, she's looking for the dark saber, which we find out from, I think, Rebels specifically, like whoever has the dark saber is the leader and the uniter of all the clans.
It's like Excalibur.
Yeah, in Arthur.
Which I really like that when franchises kind of take real mythology and sort of put it into their series. I think I really like that aspect of different shows and series. Mm-hmm.
Right. I think one of the reasons why Star Wars is so popular is that it takes a lot of elements from the real world. It just puts them in space. Mm-hmm. Like the originals with Luke, it's sort of like a reminiscent of the World Wars.
Oh,
just
definitely.
In space.
The Empire are basically space Nazis.
Yeah, pretty much. Even the weapons and the helmets are sort of fashioned from old-fashioned guns and helmets. Mm-hmm. And they have different religions and cultures being shown in some of the different species, which can sort of be a little taken with a grain of salt, I think, in some cases. But anyways, back to the Mandalorian. Yeah. Did you notice, or I guess, I don't know, because I found this out once Boba Fett's chain code was translated, and it actually reveals the origin of Jango Fett and his armor. Mm-hmm. Because I think and I'm sure many other people thought that Jango Fett was sort of like a fake Mandalorian. So like he just kind of like took the armor and used it as his own. So this proves that he was not. And because we couldn't see the whole code because it's cut off, but based off of the translation, the code reads Foundling Concord Dawn, which is rumored to be Jango's home planet, we see Mentor Jast, Father Fett, and Boba Fett. And with Mentor Jaster could be reference to Jaster Mirel. I never know how to pronounce his last names. Who is from actually the expanded universe with known ties to Jango and actually became the eventual leader of all the Mandalorian clans. So could this be an Easter egg or perhaps, a future character? Because I don't know if Jaster is dead or not. Mm-hmm. So if he's not dead, do you think it's just something they put in there for the deep fans, or is it a future character we could see?
I think that it's probably more of an Easter egg, but I think that there is going to be some plot point of kind of, all the Mandalorians, all the different ones from all over sort of coming together in order to do something. Mm-hmm. What that is, we don't know yet, but that's kind of where I see it going in the future. Obviously, they can go in a totally different direction, but
right.
I think that would kind of make sense with all the different sort of side characters and stuff we've been seeing throughout the series.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm a little surprised that, Mando didn't recognize Boba Fett's signet, because it's the same one that hangs mm-hmm. over the blacksmith's blacksmith.
Yeah, I think originally he was thinking this guy's a fake or a fraud, mm-hmm. Because of when he first met the sheriff guy who was wearing the armor, and right. Then he was probably thinking, oh, this guy's just another guy trying to get this really valuable armor from me. He's probably just in it for the armor and for the cool weapons. He's probably not sort of a part of all this.
Right. So how do you feel about Cara Dune becoming a marshal of the Republic, of the New Republic? Excuse me. It's
an interesting choice because she definitely started out as kind of a more mercenary, sort of gray character.
I was under the impression she did not like the New Republic.
Yeah, and there was a line in one of the previous episodes where someone's like, oh, you can report them to the New Republic, and then Mando's like, that's a joke.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, maybe sort of on the periphery, we'll see sort of the New Republic actually becoming a force and sort of being able to exert their control over different places. But I don't think that'll be the focus. I think that'll be more of just, we kind of see it off to the side, mm-hmm. While, Mando's going on all these adventures.
Right, because there is a talk about, will Cara Dune get her own, sideshow? Mm-hmm. Because right now, from a couple episodes back, she's offered the badge, and then to this new episode, she's now a marshal. Mm-hmm. I feel like we're missing a good chunk of information between there.
Yeah, I guess, she's a veteran, so they're just like, all right, well, we need people.
Yeah, that's
come
true.
Here.
We are low in numbers. Please join us.
But,
yeah, so something that I found interesting is towards the end of this episode, we see Grogu using the Force when he's, gotten mm-hmm. captured, including the chokehold, which is a signature, dark side move. We know that Grogu is frightened of these people, so I'm wondering if this encounter may lead him down a dark path. Mm-hmm. Probably briefly. I don't think they're going to have him go full dark side Yoda, but I'm interested to see how this will affect him. Especially because he's so young, he's still learning, he's still developing his powers. Mm-hmm.
I personally can't see them making him a dark side Yoda. I mean, they might, but I just don't see that happening. I think they might actually write Grogu out of the show, just in one way or another. I don't know if it'll be he gets taken off by a Jedi or something, or mm-hmm. if he's killed or something. I don't know, but I think that they're going to take him out of the show somehow. But I could be wrong.
Yeah, well, I feel like after a while, because right now we have 3 different plot points, which I mentioned mm-hmm. an episode or 2 back. We have Ahsoka's looking for Thrawn, and therefore Ezra. Mm-hmm. Bo-Katan is looking for the Darksaber and Moff Gideon, so she can, reunite Mandalore. And then we have the child and this cloning facility with these weird Snoke or Emperor Palpatine drafts or whatever they are. Mm-hmm. I could be wrong, but whatever they are. So, eventually either all 3 of these points have to coincide at some point, or one of them has to be resolved.
It does feel like they're kind of coalescing into one thing where it seems like Moff Gideon is involved with the cloning stuff, and it seems like the baby Yoda is like the source of the blood for the clones or something. So it seems like all those plot points are kind of coming together, and I don't think that they're going to resolve them all this season. I think, they might resolve one or two of the points this season, and then, still have the other two to go off of.
Right. And there's this big question, once we find out Grogu's background, is someone had taken him from the temple before Order 66. Who was it? How did they know to do that, and why? And in one of these last scenes, we see Moff Gideon taunting Grogu with the dark saber, which is, for all intents and purposes, a lightsaber. And I feel like this is him assuming the child has seen it before during his training at the Jedi Temple. But my question is, how does he know to do that? Does he know where Grogu is from, and how he would even know what a lightsaber is? Mm-hmm.
Those are all really interesting questions. There are the theories that Moff Gideon is force sensitive, and that's why he has the dark saber. Obviously we'll have to see, but maybe if he is a force sensitive, then maybe he has some more knowledge of sort of the Jedi than the typical person would. But
true, yeah. So that's about the whole episode, really. What I think we can expect from future episodes is, as you mentioned earlier, Mando is assembling a task force following the structure of season 1. We see the characters from previous episodes all joining together towards the end of the series. We probably know that the child won't be killed because he's needed for his blood. But we also found out, a few episodes previous, that they may need all of his blood to make the whole cloning process work. And so this next episode will probably involve Mando, breaking Mayfield out of prison, and they'll probably be cut in with scenes involving Grogu, at the hands of Moff Gideon. If they torture him, I may not be able to watch this next episode. And we know that, Dr. Pershing, which is the doctor from the first season, he doesn't want to hurt the child, so maybe we'll see him trying to help him escape or help Mando,
Yeah, he could be a turncoat.
Yeah, how Hux was, but they didn't do Hux justice. That's another...
Yeah, we don't need to talk about the Disney movies.
We saw that Grogu successfully used the Seeing Stone to call out to any Jedis who may be able to, feel his call. There are perhaps 3 people that are theorized could listen. Either Luke, because he's out roaming the galaxy for these, ancient relics. Ezra, or even, for those who play Jedi The Fallen Order, Cal Kestis. However, I do think Cal will be unlikely because his games, they haven't finished, and I feel like featuring him may be a disservice to the storyline of his games. I have another theory. So we've all been saying how Ahsoka is not the one who's going to train Grogu because, in the name, she's not a Jedi. Exactly. She left the Jedi Order. She's a Force wielder and is representative of the Force itself. And there's a reason why she carries white sabers instead of those of color, because she is a pure Jedi. She's what the Jedi are supposed to be before they got caught up in the political scheme of everything.
Before they got 66.
Yeah. But we did see in the last episode that she and Grogu had, I think, a relatively deep connection, because they can speak to each other through their feelings. And I think she will be able to hear his call, and because she is one with the Force, she may see that she is the one who needs to, at the very least, help him a little bit. Maybe not train him, but help him out of this situation. And eventually the storyline of Ahsoka finding Thrawn because she's looking for Ezra has to coincide with Mando trying to find a Jedi who could, also assumably be Ezra. So I feel like they might need to work together a little bit to find him. Dave Filoni, he has stated that there's a reason why we haven't seen Sabine Wren yet. Because at the end of Rebels, Ahsoka and Sabine, they leave together on the search for Ezra. And according to Filoni, these events of The Mandalorian and, Rebels, they're not linear. So my theory is that Ahsoka will not seek out Sabine until she is sure she knows either Thrawn or Ezra's location. And, we also see a change in wardrobe for Ahsoka at the end of Rebels. She's wearing this white cloak, and she has a staff, And, in Mandalorian, she's wearing, dark colors similar to her dress in the Clone Wars. So I feel like the white robe signifies her growth and increased connection to the Force. It symbolizes her as an enlightened being. So I think something has to happen with Ahsoka between us seeing her now versus the timeline of Rebels. And that something may be her help with Grogu, or also maybe her involvement in helping to clean out the remnants of the Empire.
Mm-hmm. It'll be really interesting to see where they take Ahsoka next. I do wonder how big of a part of the Mandalorian going forward she'll be. Mm-hmm. There's obviously the rumors of like a spin-off show. I don't know how founded they are.
Right.
But I think we'll definitely see more Ahsoka in one way or the other. I just don't know if that's going to be here in the Mandalorian or in a totally new thing.
Yeah, I love Ahsoka. She's probably one of my top Star Wars characters. So, and I think Rosario Dawson did a pretty good job because, there's always little tweaks that, when you're taking an animation character to live action, mm-hmm. it can either go well or not. But I think it did a pretty good job in terms of like characteristic Ahsoka.
Yeah.
The voice control, her actions, I think were pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
So I would love an Ahsoka live action, to be honest.
Yeah, I think it would be really great. They could do a lot of really interesting things with it. And there's also a lot of possibilities of when they could set that series. Where if they really wanted to, they could set it during like sort of the main Empire period where she's going off and sort of like after Rebels, but before the Mandalorian, or they could set it after the fall of the Empire. They could do a lot with it, and mm-hmm. That'd be interesting to see, particularly with, like I said, one of my favorite characters as well. So.
Yeah, because we do know, in The Rise of Skywalker, we do know that she has unfortunately passed on. So what she does between now and then is kind of like a mystery.
Well, does that necessarily mean she died? Because
I think so, because those are like the Force ghosts talking to her.
Okay. I don't know.
Honestly, I haven't seen that episode out of theaters.
Last time I saw it, I was wasted. So I don't know if I'm the Rise of Skywalker expert.
Yeah, no, I'd have to watch it more. That is probably the most confusing Star Wars episode for me, is The Rise of Skywalker. Again, we'll table that for another podcast discussion. I feel like I have said this on this podcast so many times. They're expecting like a Rise of Skywalker podcast from me, which you will get eventually, just not right now. So I think one little fun fact, because I think I've reached the end of my bullet points. Boba Fett's his weapon, the gaffy stick. You actually see used by the Tusken Raiders.
Oh, yeah, so he probably got it from them when he was hanging out on Tatooine.
Yeah, along with that dart gun looking thing, I think was also...
that's also one of theirs. That's cool.
Yeah.
I guess, quick question. Do you think that they'll ever go to Camino on Mandalorian? That could be interesting since, they seem to be trying to make clones. They seem to be trying to... make Force-sensitive people, and then they have Boba Fett back in, so,
Yeah,
I think
that would be interesting. I feel like they're trying to keep this cloning process a secret, and I think some might argue that going to Camino, like, might be a little, like, out there, but also I feel like we should remember that, the Jedi... they knew nothing of the clones being cloned from Jango Fett on Camino. So I think it's a possibility.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see about that.
It'd be really interesting to see how Camino has changed since we last saw it, and what all the effects of it are and everything.
Yeah. Didn't we visit Camino in the Clone Wars as well?
Yeah. I guess what I meant was like time period wise.
Yeah. No, I got you. Just... but also, I think something interesting about the gaffy stick is that it's based off of a Fijian weapon known as a Totokia, which is a happy connection to Morrison's Pacific background. Oh,
that is pretty cool. I didn't realize that, but that's interesting.
I was doing a lot of research after it came out, which I usually do anyways. But so I went through all my bullet points. Is there anything you wanted to ask or make a comment about?
No, I think it was a pretty good episode. Excited to see where they go next with the show.
All right, me too. Well, thank you guys for listening. Please join me next week. Again, will most likely be a Mandalorian episode as it's getting to a head.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for listening. I'll see you next week.